I know that this happened a while ago, and I know that you guys have probably talked about it, but we haven't had you on since Pete Hegseth had his general admiral meeting. And I, as somebody who's never served, I found it offensive. I found it ridiculous. I'm like, this piece of shit, this little whatever, is sitting here and talking to a room full of people that are so beyond his understanding in his league. Like, he is so out of his element. And I can't imagine that the majority of the men that were sitting in that room left there thinking anything other than, I should call my lawyer, because they're basically being asked to follow illegal orders. And so I'm wondering, let's start with you, Larry, like, from your perspective, what do you think was going through the minds of those people that were summoned there in a very unprecedented way, which is also unsafe, and what that must be like for those people to be sitting there and being told that they can't be fatties by a man who can't do a pull-up?
I think it was much more serious than that in terms of what they were being told, whether it was verbalized or not. It was certainly there. And I parsed this with a number of people as you might imagine, over the last few days, general officers, admirals, others, retired, active. And I think one of the most dangerous things that we all boiled it down to that we saw was the president and his sycophant, the sycophant giving the details of how it was going to be done in terms of violence. And that's really what he was doing. And the president giving it in terms of why he was doing it. And this message was delivered to this audience: you are going to help me suppress my political opponents in all the blue states and blue cities that are of consequence in this country. And if you don't like that, if you don't like using the military to do this kind of purely political task and illegal task, unconstitutional task, then you can leave. And oh, by the way, we've got your data, and we know where you stand and where you are, at least partially. We will soon know completely, because we're going to implement polygraphs and we're going to do all kinds of things in your process of being a general or an admiral. And we will ferret you out if you are not in agreement with us, because that's what we're going to do. Oh, yeah, we might fight a few Islamo terrorists who might be in there, or little Trinidad people who might be in those cities. But basically, I want you to help me defeat my political enemies completely and utterly. That's the most dangerous message that came across, I think.
What do you think they do with that, though?
Good question. I would have thought, and the three generals they suggested, and one admiral, Schwarzkopf, Patton, and Admiral Stockdale, particularly the latter, who I won't say my colleagues, but my contacts in Hanoi essentially told me that they had never met a man like Jim Stockdale. He was pure stoic. He taught Epictetus at my college, the Naval War College. I took his seminar. Extraordinary man. He's the man who, as vice presidential candidate for Ross Perot, stood at the podium during a Q&A, and he looked at the person asking the question and said something to the effect of, "What am I doing here?" and walked off the stage.
I remember that. Remember that.
These three, Patton, Schwarzkopf, and Stockdale, would have been out of that before it even got started. I mean, they were on their feet and then be out of there. Patton probably hurling through epithets back over his shoulder. No one did.
I know.
And that's very disquieting. That's very disquieting. You even had someone in that audience, the Southern Command commander, who now has authorized, executed 4 extrajudicial killings on the high seas, 4 boats. I don't know how many killings. So that person is obviously sort of in the boat, as it were, with Trump and Hegseth. That's very disturbing, very disquieting. The female, who was the Southern Command commander before the present one, I understand, went along with it too. So you've got 2 4-stars who went along with this kind of extrajudicial killing, clearly against international law, against domestic law, unconstitutional. Congress didn't approve it. Very disquieting that those people didn't make a move. They look grizzled and grumpy, but they didn't make a move.
Dennis, what did you I mean, I can imagine you have a lot to say about this meeting.
Well, I tell you the reason why I do is because for the last 10 years of my military career, the positions that I held, I would have been in that room.
Yeah.
You see, I was a senior enlisted advisor to general officers on up to 4-star generals. And I would have been in that room because the senior enlisted were invited to that meeting as well. And I got to tell you, timing is everything, because I would have been one to have retired and resigned because I threatened to do that to less things, if you will. Now, the two most dangerous things that was said by Hegseth and the president of the United States was telling those general officers and those admirals and those senior enlisted to break international law, to break the Geneva Conventions and go in and kill people. And no matter what you do, we got your back. The second thing in that meeting was that he gave them permission to go ahead. We may call you in to kill American citizens, make them the enemy that we will practice on to do that killing and destruction of infrastructure. Those were the two major damaging and most probably illegal things that were said in that room. I can care less about fat generals, but he's talking about killing American citizens, and he's telling the American generals now, mind you, the most senior officers in our military and our most senior enlisted, to go out there and break international law. Now, that is a disgrace, and we should have had half of those generals speaking, at least if they can't come forward, to at least to speak out, to the media and to keep their names withheld to show how bad that was. That is very dangerous. And I'm just so disappointed that none of them have come out anonymously or whatever the case may be to share with the American people how dangerous that is.
If you think that was bad, and I think we can all agree that it was really bad, this is even worse. And this is the reason why we asked you two gentlemen to join us this evening.
20 years of service in the military. Yesterday, I got pulled into an officer's office and counseled for posts that I have on my social media. During the counseling, they told me I'm under investigation as a threat to national security. When I asked for proof, like what the posts were yesterday, they refused to give it to me. They made me come back today to further go over stuff. They gave me the proof, and the proof they gave me are anti-Israel posts. Now, when I joined the military, I took an allegiance to support the United States of America. I did not ever take an allegiance to support Israel. But yet, I am deemed a threat to national security because I do not support Israel and their genocide against the Palestinian people. Yes, you heard that right. I am deemed a threat to national security because I don't support Israel's genocide against the Palestinian people. Since when does not supporting a foreign nation get a U.S. soldier investigated for being a threat to national security?
Can I comment on that?
Please,
yeah.
please.
I saw that. That's been out about a month. I saw that and I commented on that. And I am so proud of that enlisted man. I am so proud of him. Now, let me share something with you. Something else I was going to add earlier, and this lines up with that. He was called in because of the fact he refused to support what Israel is doing. Also, as part of what Hegseth preached, was that he gave the military men and women, those senior officers and senior enlisted, the green light to mimic what Israel is doing right now. Think about what I just said. In that telling them to violate the Geneva Conventions and break international law, all he was doing was giving our military men and women the green light to do exactly what the Israeli IDF is doing in Gaza right now.
Yep.
I just Larry, did these officers must know that they're now going to be, I guess, obeying illegal orders. So how does that, I mean, then that, aren't they then criminally liable?
Yes, and they'll take that on a case-by-case basis, I'm sure. And I'd like to think if it gets really grievous in their minds, they will walk. Let me back up and add a little to that video. I learned that what they went through at Fort Bragg, and remember Fort Bragg, where the troops were out there kind of rah-rahing with the president? What they went through there was a complete vetting of the audience before the audience was composed and put in front of the president.
Okay.
And they vetted with everything from AI, in other words, reading people's actual body language with AI so they could get an idea of whether or not they were lying, to making sure that there was going to be no one in the first 12 or 13 rows in particular, but in the entire audience, that would be in any way, gestures, eye rolls, or anything else antagonistic to the president's remarks. And then they went looking for people to put in the first few rows that would be rah-rah to those remarks. And they found them. Now, that's the first disquieting thing, is that at Fort Bragg, they found these people and they put them in preacher-packed the audience so that it would look like the president had real rah-rah appreciation for his remarks in the military audience. That's unconscionable, but that's what they did. And the only thing that encourages me from that is I'm told they had to look long and hard to find sufficient people to put in that audience.
Good. Those
Yes.
people should be ashamed of themselves. They should be ashamed of themselves. And quite honestly, and I agree, those people should have, in that meeting, should have stood up and walked out.
Well, that was a violation of DOD regulations too, DOW, I guess now,
Oh,
because they're very specific about how if you're in uniform, even if you're in front of the president and the president's giving remarks, that's a political speech. If you're in uniform, you have certain rules about the decorum you exercise, and it doesn't include jumping up and rah-rahing.
You can't go to a political gathering in uniform.
Yeah.
huh. But yet they all did that.
Well,
Well,
there
I don't know
are
if you guys
exceptions
do
for the
this.
president at places like the academy and such, but still you must comport yourself with decorum. You can't be out there cheering when he talks about things that you shouldn't be cheering.
Hey, Larry, and I think, to be honest with you, I think they did a pretty good job at that. You know, they stayed very stoic and so forth as
Yeah.
well as they
Oh,
could.
at Quantico. Yeah, they did
Yeah.
at Quantico. Yeah.
Yeah.
But not at Bragg.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Not at Bragg. Like I said, that goes back to what he liked. Now, that was a political gathering because
Yeah.
everybody, was, checked out and vetted, if you will, as Larry alluded to.
Did you
And
see how
that's-
disappointed Pete was when nobody clapped for his speech?
Oh, yeah. Well,
I
the
would
the
watch
president
that
too.
on repeat over and over and over. He's like, nobody clapped for me. No one's clapping for you, Petey.